Luke chapter 5. We'll see how this goes tonight. I had this message typed out for some time, and Monday, the Lord started kind of twisting it in my mind. Tuesday, Wednesday, and this morning I kind of jotted a couple more notes down in here to help me with where I think we're supposed to go, but we'll see how it goes. Luke chapter 5. I want to try to help each one of us today. I think this story, as I was going through it, started to look at it maybe from a different perspective. I know we've been teaching and preaching through the idea of Jesus Christ, and certainly this is a story that I obviously Jesus Christ is in, but maybe point out a little bit different of a direction here this evening. Verse number 17, Luke chapter 5, verse 17. I think you'll recognize the story. And it came to pass on a certain day as he was teaching that there were Pharisees and doctors of the law sitting by, which were come out of every town of Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem, and the power of the Lord was present to heal them. And behold, men brought in a bed a man which was taken with a palsy, and they sought means to bring him in and to lay him before him. And when they could not find by what way they might bring him in because of the multitude, they went upon the housetop and let him down through the tiling with his couch into the midst before Jesus. And when he saw their faith, he said unto him, Man, thy sins are forgiven thee. And the scribes and Pharisees began to reason, saying, Who is this which speaketh blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone? But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answering said unto them, What reason ye in your hearts? Whether is easier to say, Thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Rise up and walk. I'm going to stop there this evening. Want to again try to encourage us this evening. We're well into the first year of ministry of Jesus Christ. His popularity again has continued to grow. He's done some miracles. He's been preaching with authority. And think about the crowd that he's preaching to here. Pharisees, of course, Jesus knows who the Pharisees are. They try to be religious, but there's not much religion going on. There's just a form of godliness with no power thereof. And then he's also got some doctors, so this would certainly be an intellectual group. Almost one of those stories that when you hear the story take place, you say, well, that's exactly the group that this type thing probably they would certainly frown and turn their nose up at. But so Jesus is here. He's in this house preaching, and a great multitude has come, and we see this group of four men, four friends that come and bring their friend who is sick of the palsy. And they lower him, so the roofs of that time, I think most of us probably know, are not like the pitched roofs that we have today. They actually, a lot of times in those days, the roofs were made in such a way that in the evening they could ascend up on them by staircase on the outside, and there would be places on a lot of those roofs that they could sit and enjoy the evening, maybe watching the sunset, maybe looking for what moon? The blood moon, looking for the blood moon. All right. Of course, the Israelites were very, very into looking towards the eastern sky to look for Jesus Christ's return. And so for us to say, well, they got up onto the roof was not that big of a deal. And they were also made in such a way that you notice here that it talks about the tiling. They removed the tiling. I grew up thinking to myself, well, they probably had saws up there and there's dust flying down and all of this. It wouldn't have been quite that difficult or that much of a big deal. It certainly would have been a big deal. I'm not saying that, but I don't think wood shavings were coming down in Jesus when he was teaching it, getting choked up on wood chips or anything like that. But they removed the roof and they lowered their friend down. And I believe Jesus Christ makes a very strong claim here to being the Messiah. Remember, we've kind of been establishing that all along, that he's not just claiming to be Jesus, he's claiming to be the Messiah when he looks at this man and tells him that his sins are forgiven. Okay? He's taking it beyond he's just a miracle worker. He's taking it to the fact that he could forgive sins. And of course, they question him about this. And Jesus here asked them, hey, is it easier for me to say, take up the bed and walk, you're healed, or to say thy sins are forgiven thee? All right, so Jesus again is pushing this idea that he's the Messiah. But this is where I want to go this evening. I think this is, again, I've had this message probably for 2 months, trying to stay ahead on this for other things, the class and different things that I'm making sure are prepared as well. You say, why are you ahead? Why do you try to stay ahead? Okay, there's about 8 to 9 different lessons that I try to have prepared every week. So with that in mind, I can't be working on this week's for everything. So I've tried to keep it ahead and give me some more time to think and to study. And to me, it's really interesting the timing that God has everything in play. Because I think this message tonight is going to help our church in a tremendous way. This week, I started thinking, it might have been last Thursday, that Wednesday, Thursday are often sermon study days, and so I try to review the next couple sermons as well as prepare some sermons here over those days. And I began to think about this, and I began to think about the people involved in this story. And so we're going to try to demonstrate it tonight. I gave Isaiah a fair warning that I was going to put them to work this evening, some of the teenagers. But I'd like to stop and just kind of break this story down for us a little bit and try to help us see some things that are helpful. The first person that we see in this story would be who? Who's the main character of the story tonight? Of course, Jesus. But humanly speaking, the man with the palsy, that's the first problem. So looking at this evening, I think to myself, the man with the palsy would represent all of us. So, well, I don't have a problem. The man with the palsy did have a problem. What was his problem? He couldn't do anything for himself. Okay? I don't know how extensive his sickness of the palsy was, but he couldn't do anything for himself. And there's a couple different terms in there as to what he's sitting on. It said his bed, it said the couch. Okay, it was whatever he sat in his house, that's what the guys used. All right, and think about ourselves here. This man that was sick of the palsy, he couldn't do anything for himself. So he was relying on his friends. And the friends were trying to get him to Jesus. All right, so I brought the sheet here. This is going to be our bed. We're going to put this all together. I was trying to, before the service, figure out who do we want to put on the sheet, okay?
It's not big enough for that. To carry somebody?
Well, we had to pick, not Isaiah. No. So I'm thinking here, Delana, I think you'll represent all of us. You get to represent us.
Why me?
Because if I was going to pick anybody to represent us, it would be you. Had nothing to do with you being small. Nobody's going to carry you or anything. I just need you to come sit on the bed for us, okay?
You'll stay on the ground. Okay, she's good.
Just right in the middle.
Wait, like lay down or sit?
No, just sit. You can just sit. Yep, that's okay. Perfect. All right. Now, here's the thing. And I think this is This is helpful for all of us to start understanding here, okay? The long-term part of this story is she's able to walk, but ultimately the long-term part of the story is what? Her sins were forgiven. Mm-hmm. And so I think for us to understand this tonight, we've got to stop looking and saying this man had a physical problem. That was not why he needed to get to Jesus. He needed to get to Jesus because he had a physical problem. Now, we would look and we would probably, I think everybody here would probably say, well, I'm saved, I'm born again, I know I'm on my way to heaven. But last week we talked about the idea of Satan's battle against us, and we have to get to Jesus Christ for help. So let's build on that. And let's go through this and think to ourselves just a couple ideas here. Again, I didn't even put all this down, so hopefully it makes sense by the time we're done. All right? The person that's sick with the palsy, the man that's sick with the palsy, Alana representing us, has to understand she can't do it on her own. Okay? Maybe the man's friends came to him. Maybe I should have put a guy. Well, the guys are going to be carried, so I can't really do that. Right? But maybe the man's friends came to him.
She thinks that she's going to stay on the ground, so you might have to change it.
You are. Nobody's going to carry you. We're not lifting. We're not going to have you levitate, okay? I will have people grab the corners, but they're not supposed to pick it up. Okay? I don't want you falling through. No. All right? But a lot of times, we've represented this in our messages before recently, the idea that we get saved and we think we've got it all together. We know exactly what needs to be done. But the truth of the matter is, with our problems, we don't really understand everything of what Jesus wants to do. On the other side of it, there's this, okay? A friend of mine, some of you may know him from camp, Pastor Jared Dunbar. He's got a brother who has cerebral palsy, I think it is. He's in his 40, I think he just turned 40 or 42, something like that. But they have to carry him everywhere. And I was talking to him a few weeks ago, and he said, boy, John can get stubborn sometimes. Sometimes you've got to get him to where he needs to go, and he just kind of locks his body. And he's just dead weight. Right? And I think sometimes we as Christians, we know that we have a problem, and you could start listing off the problems. All right? You could say to yourself, well, do you want to turn around so you can see? She's like, I'm having to turn back and forth. All right? We'll get some other people up there and embarrass them in a little bit, okay? All right? You may look and say, well, my problem is not that big. It's not as big as so-and-so's problem. So-and-so's involved in homosexuality. They really need Jesus. Or so-and-so's involved in idolatry or swearing or, murder or something like that. And we say, well, I feel like when we start looking at other people and we start saying that they have a problem, we are hindering the opportunity that we have to get to Jesus. We're starting, what I feel like is happening when we start doing this, all right, and we say, well, they have a problem, we're pushing away the opportunity that we have. Okay, so if we were trying to pick this person up here, and she started pushing us away, we're going to have a hard time. All right, and sometimes we'll look and we'll say, well, all my problem is when I look at mine, I have a little bit of problem with covetousness, but it's not that big a deal. I have a little problem with greed, or I have a little problem of disobedience to my parents, or disrespect to authority, or lying, or my problem's not that big of a deal. Then I feel like not only are we pushing away, but now we're saying, I don't need it. And Christian, let me tell you, it doesn't matter the size of the sin that we classify it to be. We need Jesus' help. We have to get it. And I feel like when we start saying, well, I don't need it, we're like that handicap guy that I was mentioning that just becomes dead weight. And if we don't truly understand, okay, if it's discouragement, I need help from Jesus. If it's backbiting, I need help from Jesus. If it's I have bad thoughts about somebody, or I'm upset at some, I need Jesus. I need the help. We have to come to realization we need help. And listen, every one of us need help getting to Jesus sometimes. Well, I've been around for a long time. If that's my attitude, I've been around for a long time. I may have friends that see me and say, we need to get you to Jesus because we see a problem. And I say, well, I've been around a long time. I don't need help. I'm going to have some major problems in life. I'm never going to see those things fixed. Okay? So now all of a sudden, we get to the point that we realize we need help. And some of this is going to be focused on the young people, but I think it fits with all of us, okay? All right, so I was trying to think to myself, growing up as a young person, for friends. Well, we'll come back to that. For friends, maybe they weren't called my friends, but for people who noticed, yeah, she needs some help. All right, and here's what I started thinking. First person that came along my side that knew I needed to get to Jesus was my parents. Right? Right? So, Javen, you want to step in the parent shoes? Could you imagine Javen as a parent someday?
No.
All right, so you're going to be here. All right? Go ahead and just stick that around your neck so you don't have to worry about it. Don't worry, my dad made me wear one time around church. I said, I'm a liar, and I'm like, oh. Right, anyway, right, it just says parental authority, okay? So you get that corner. Well, you're not going to stand out. Eventually, you're going to hold it. All right. We're not going to lift her, but that's the idea. All right. Who's somebody else in our life that maybe would help us with getting to Jesus? What's that? Pastoral authority. Okay. So let me just say this under. Okay, parents are there to help. Parents are. I'm sorry. If a parent does something that's mean, parental authority, they are not doing it to be mean. A parent steps in to help for what reason? Because they know their child needs to get to Jesus. I think the overall thing of this is somewhere along the line, something here is going to jump out to every one of us, whether it's to be a help or that we need help, okay? So keep your eyes, ears peeled that something here is for all of us. All right. If I see my children struggling with, let's just say, simple obedience when mom and dad speak, and we deal with it, and we deal with it, and we deal with it, and they're not getting it, so I get harsher on them. A child has, and I was there, okay? My parents had to do that often. All right? I had to come to the realization they are trying to help get me to Jesus. And as a parent, I have to understand that sometimes there's going to be some drastic things that need to take place to get my children to the person that can help them. But I also have to realize as a parent, I can do things to get them to Jesus, but I'm not going to be the one that makes the difference. It has to be Jesus. Okay, so then we get to our pastoral authority. I figured I'd pick a guy for this one because it wouldn't be right to pick a girl for pastoral authority. You know what I mean? Christina, you with me on that?
Yeah.
All right, so Isaiah, you're the other guy here. So you're standing up there. Now, let me say this. Pastoral authority, obviously God gives us in our church. God gives us a pastor to help lead us. But can I say, ladies, part of our pastoral leadership comes from right here.
Not because she was ordained to be a pastor, not because she's a pastor. But she knows how to connect with ladies a lot better than I do. All right? So we have pastoral leadership. Something else that also comes from the idea of pastoral authority. There may be a pastor that comes in to preach here. And he preaches on something that you didn't think he knew about, but he gets up and he preaches and you say, man, he knew exactly what I needed. It's because, not because he knows your life and not because your pastor talks to them at all, but because he knows you need to get to Jesus. All right, another one. All right, here we go. So, you guys get to pick who's the teacher. Who's the teacher? All right, she's pointing at you. Come on. All right, so here we have our teacher authority. This would be, go ahead and step right on that, towards that corner. This would be people that are teaching. All right, now in our church, because we're a young church, we're a small church, and it tends to fall on my wife and I a lot. But there's other people in here that start helping teaching, and even down to the point that we have, oh, go ahead and pick quiet seat. You say, I'm not a teacher. Okay, but some of the kids in Bible club, how come they didn't pick me? And it leads to opportunities that you have to talk with them along the way. All right, but I know growing up, okay, teacher authority, I would include maybe my principal, maybe my youth pastor, maybe that would be kind of in between pastoral and teacher here. But think about it. What's a teacher? What's a Sunday school teacher? What's the whole purpose of their ministry?
Teaching about the Bible.
To get people to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Right? Then we have the last one, I would say, would be church friends. All right? Because a good friend is going to always do what? Try to get them to Jesus. Grow. Iron sharpeneth iron. Okay? Now, all right, so that's you. All right? Go ahead. Now, again, I'm trying to put this picture all together for us tonight. Of these four, I'm going to start out by saying this. Who is the most important?
Parents.
Parents are number one. All right? Pastor supports the parents. Okay? Teachers support the parents. Church friends support the parents. It is not my job to be the main person in the person sick with the palsy. I have to do my part. But I'm just saying this, if the parent won't take the responsibility, and you say, well, this happened growing up in a bigger church, I think this kind of would happen a little bit more. Oh, the church raises my kid. No. The number one institution for getting somebody to Jesus Christ is the family, which starts with the parents. All right, so he's got the parental authority has to do their part. Now, we're not picking her up. She's scared to death that she's going to get picked up.
You don't need to do it all the time.
They throw around all the time. All right? But the pastor also has to be together. Now, when he picks his up, it's interesting. They're connected. They should be connected. They should be working together. Okay? And the pastoral, under the pastoral leadership, you have teacher authority that's picking up. Okay? And church friends. Now, here's what I'm trying, the first thing that I want to get us to understand. You guys are actually facing the wrong direction. We're going to be walking into each other real quick here.
What?
Let's switch this hand.
We're gonna walk.
You don't even have to look at her.
Look at her.
Aren't you blessed? He's blessed. He don't have to look at you. I'm just kidding. All right. Now, here's the thing. Back up. Well, you pulled tighter a little bit. All right. Who's the leader? The parents. They are going to be the ones that determine the direction ultimately. The pastor's going to help, and we're going to work together. These two have to follow what leadership? Parents. If they start saying, well, I think this is going to help her, and she starts saying she thinks that way will help her, and the parents and the pastor are trying to go that way, what's going to happen? We're not going anywhere, are we? Our ultimate goal is for what? For her to get to Jesus. And if we're not working together, we're not going to have it happen. Now, here's the other thing, though. All of us have just as much responsibility. You say, that's not my kid. That's just some kid in my church or individual. All right, I'm saying kid because we have a teen in there. But we're talking about any of us that have a problem that need to get to Jesus. All of us as a church have a responsibility to get each other to Jesus. If we see, okay, and I'm not saying be a pious punk. What do I mean by that? You got a problem and you need to get to Jesus. You're some wicked sinner. That's not what I'm talking about. But if Bill sees me having a problem and he notices it, and he's a good friend, what's he going to do? He's going to help me. We need to get to Jesus. All right? Now, let's go another step. All of them have to work with what as the objective? Getting to Jesus. We can't do our own thing. Again, we kind of demonstrated that if we all pull our own direction. But it's got to be for the same purpose, and it's to get them to Jesus. But as you see in the story, as soon as they get them to Jesus, who do we not see anything else about? The four friends. We see all of it pointing to who? Jesus. The reason that we are all doing this is not so that we get up, oh, look at, I had this person and got them to Jesus. No, that has nothing to do with it. It's also that God can get the glory. Amen. It's also that when we have that problem and we cannot, listen, this person has to come to the realization they can't do it on their own. They can't do anything. They've got to get to Jesus to get help. And I think that's probably the biggest problem sometimes. We think I'm okay. We don't see that we have a problem. But they've got to get to Jesus. Then we see the four, and you could probably put somebody else in there as a friend. But I think those four things kind of cover everything in the church of people that would be helping get us to Jesus. Now this person has to trust. They've got to trust their parents or their parental authority that they're trying to get them to Jesus. There was times that my parents said, I remember specifically one thing my dad would say that really irritated me. Jim, I don't want you hanging around that person. I remember very specifically, I think it was 6th or 7th grade. Jim, you're not going to that birthday party tonight. Ugh. I was so mad at my dad. I found out years later that there were some things that happened at that party that I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. I probably wouldn't be your pastor today had I been at that birthday party. I didn't know why my dad was telling me what he was telling me. But I had to come to the realization I had to trust him. Sometimes you say, I don't understand why the pastor's doing what he's doing. Well, I believe, and again, I don't like preaching this way because I don't want anybody leaving here saying the pastor thinks he's somebody special. But God leads our church in a certain way for a certain reason. And sometimes there was times I had to trust my pastor. I had to trust my youth pastor. I didn't understand why they were, all right, I'll just tell you one. This one's kind of humorous because I don't have any hair anymore, all right? But my youth pastor picked on me one time because I had my hair slicked down in a way that he didn't think was right. Me and another guy. And he treated me wrong. And I could get so worked up and mad, and you could say, don't worry about that, okay? I'm just saying there are things that my youth pastor did. There were things that my principal did that I didn't fully understand why they were doing what they were doing. But down the road, I look back and I say, yeah, I probably needed that because I was a stupid, hard-headed punk. That God had to use some of those things to break through my hard heart. Trust your pastor. Trust your pastoral authority. Right? Trust your teachers. Church friends come along and say, hey, I noticed this is a problem. Man, stop bothering me. Stop meddling in my business. No, stop. Let's make sure that we all understand we're all in it together. You, me, the person next to you, the person down the road from you, guess what? We're all in it together. And if we all work together, which I love about our church is we do this person that's hurting is going to see relief from Jesus. Now there's one other thing that this literally came to my mind about 5 o'clock when I was getting ready. There's one more thing that's represented here, and that's the sheet, the bed, the couch. You say, what is that? As I was trying to think about it, they all have to work together. They all have to pick the same thing up. And my mind went to the cards that we've been memorizing. The thing that's going to bring us all together is if we have the love of Jesus Christ. All right? Take your Bible to 1 Corinthians 13. You guys want to take a break? You guys, you're okay? All right.
They're, except for the parental authority. We understand that gets taxing after a while. Just think of what your parents go through. Think of what your parents go through. 1 Corinthians 13. Let me show you some things. Okay? Again, I hope all of this comes together and the Lord uses something to help us out. All right, so if we think about charity, if we're going to get them to Jesus, remember what we've talked about the last couple months, if we don't have charity, everything we do is for naught. Okay? So let's just, for way of illustration, say the sheet represents our charity, our love. What is it going to take for all of us to get somebody to Jesus? Look at verse number 4. There's got to be some long suffering, doesn't there? Just understand something. This person has a problem, whether they see it or not. If they don't see it yet, they still need Jesus, right? If they've seen it once and they don't see it today, but they saw it before, they need Jesus. And that's going to take some long suffering. Charity suffers long. What else is going to have to be there? Charity suffers long and is kind. If we're going to get people to Jesus Christ, we've got to have kindness. Right? What else does it say? Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Here's what... Oh, let me go over here. Teacher could look and say, pastor's just saying something because he thinks he's the man. As soon as one of us think that, we're envying and we have just dropped our part. Go ahead. Yep. We've just dropped our part
and trying to help somebody get to Jesus. And what's going to happen to the load if she drops her part? Either it gets heavier for everybody else, or she falls out the backside. And she's done. She's not getting to Jesus. So when we say we have to work together, I can't look at somebody else and say, I want their place. No, every one of us, you can pick it back up. We want to keep your sister around. We all have to do our part. All right? Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Huh. This is me carrying the load when I was younger, subside. Right? Everybody's carrying there, and I'm like, let me show how strong I am. I'm going to carry it way up here. Okay? I'm better than all that.
Oh, yeah, guys.
And what does that do to the person? Does that help them get to Jesus? No. I've got a, okay, even the parent. I've got a bigger responsibility than anybody else. Yes, I understand that. But not to be prideful of it. I've seen this so many times in Christian life, in families. Look at my kids, they're all doing great. What is that? I've got them to Jesus in my charity, now I'm puffing myself up. We're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for Jesus. He goes on, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked. All right, remember when we were younger and there's four of us trying to carry something, and then all of a sudden it's like, would you please carry your part? Mine's getting heavier, which means you're not carrying as much of the load. And you start fighting, and eventually somebody drops it and says, I'm not helping you anymore. And she goes rolling up that hill. All right, we have to be careful that we don't allow ourselves to behave unseemly. And every one of us has, okay, listen, every one of us, if we drop our compassion, we drop our charity, we drop our love, now we have a problem with what we're trying to accomplish. Thinketh no evil. Well, that person's doing that because of, if it's an evil reason that you think if you're doing it in a way that's evil, well, that person's just picking their load up higher because they think I can't do it. That's thinking no evil. Or that's thinking evil. It's not what we should be. And we have to be careful. If I get myself to that, guess what? Okay, listen, you don't do things the same way I do. You're not always going to say things the same way that I say them. But sometimes somebody else doing, we all work our same way. If we're all doing the same thing, helping each other, following the authority that should be there first, we're going to be able to get a lot of people to Jesus, including ourselves when we need it, and we don't see that we need it. Rejoiceth not in iniquity. Okay? Parent, pastor, teachers, church. Person here does something that is wrong, but we look at and say, oh, that's funny. What am I doing? I'm rejoicing in iniquity. Okay? I've seen this happen I'm not saying here, I'm saying in years past. Okay? Parent is sitting there and they're trying to get their kid to listen and pay attention in church. Okay, there's times when I was younger that my dad I couldn't stay awake in church. It's interesting, when I finally got excited about the things of God, I didn't have a problem with that. All right? Now sometimes there's long days and it's like, all right? But my dad would make us stand up in church if we were falling asleep. Right? This was when I was, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, whatever. And at the same time, I picture someone like Alina sitting back there.
You're not wrong.
We gotta be careful. If a parent, okay, I reference the idea of my dad. My dad was harsh. If I wasn't so hard-headed, he wouldn't have had to be so harsh, right? It's not his fault, it's mine. He made you wear a sign around school. Yeah. There was people that looked at that and said, how dare he? There was other people that looked and said, ha 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 ha. And what is that? Losing my charity. All right? What continues there? Rejoiceth in the truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never faileth. Right? So if we're going to get people to Jesus Christ, we always have to keep our love going. We've got to carry them to Jesus Christ. Right now, last thought for tonight. If we're going to carry her to Jesus Christ, now the Bible doesn't tell us where exactly they came from. But I would venture to say they traveled along some dirt path, don't you think? Anybody ever been in a situation like this where people are carrying you? Maybe a game when you're younger or something like that? Or maybe you've been on a stretcher before and they're trying to get you from the house to the ambulance? Anybody ever had that?
Yeah.
All right. You feel every bump, don't you? Okay. And you're like, it's only 30 feet, but it seems like 12 miles. And it seems like every bump in Fulton, every pothole in Fulton County was found between the door and the ambulance. And you're like, would you please stop hitting the bumps? Here's what happens. Okay, you can get off so we don't drop you. Right? They pick her up. They start carrying. They're trying to get her to Jesus. Stop. They just hit a bump. And the person there, the person there says, you're trying to hurt me. Can I just say, sometimes getting to Jesus Christ, there are going to be bumps on the way, aren't there? There's going to be things that are done, and they're not doing it intentionally sometimes, are they? Yeah. They're just trying to do what they can. Sometimes to get to Jesus, it's going to be up over a hill. And they may have to hold on and say, I don't understand why you're going this route. Well, it may be the fastest way to get you there. It may be the only way to get you there. And if every time that we hit a bump, and we say, oh, you're just being mean to me. What are we doing? I don't need to get to Jesus. Young person, listen. Listen. Okay? All around here. Oh, I'm pointing back there. Young people. You have a church that wants to get you to Jesus. Because Jesus is going to make differences in your life that we can't make. And you got to trust. Okay? I know I am 100%, 150% behind parents and children are not friends. God did not make parents to be friends. Now, when they get older, if parents do it right, the Bible says the children will rise up and call their mother blessed. Okay? That happens down the road. But as a child, this society that we have in today, I've got to be best friends with my kids. I don't believe that's right. Yeah. But in this image here, your parent tries to get you to Jesus. They're being a good friend. A parent, authority, but they're doing what they can to get you to Jesus. Your pastor does something, oh, that hurts. But he's trying to get you to Jesus. You have a teacher that says, you need to sit up and you need to act right. And you need to learn that. And you need to memorize that. And you need to do that. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to help you. And you got a church family member that comes alongside and says, I saw you at such and such place. and you're doing something that I know you shouldn't be doing, stop getting mad at them and getting so frustrated at them, saying, who do they think they are coming along and telling me that I'm wrong? They're just trying to help you get to Jesus. Because Jesus Christ can truly satisfy you. Jesus Christ can help you. You guys can put that down and head back to your seat. We'll wrap this up. Because here's the thing. They did just that, didn't they? They followed directions. Right on. Nobody's allowed to come into the church right now and say, look at the mess that they have in church. They're going to come in and be like, they must be Pentecostal. They got somebody that was in the middle of the church and just, they were gone. All right? Listen. Truth of the matter is, every one of us has been or maybe are in a position right now that the only thing that can help us is Jesus Christ. Sometimes those needs are physical, but can I tell you the majority of the time they're sin? And you can push, and you can push, and you can push. And you're looking at, right now, you're looking at one of the best pushers against what we talked about tonight that's ever been on this earth. I got to the point that I hated my authority. And I don't say that lightly. I got to the point that I did not like my parents telling me what to do. I remember one time teachers, I remember one time very distinctly. I was coming down the path by the old playground, and a mom of somebody else from my class came by and they asked me a question, and they made this statement after. They said, you need to go tell your parents. And you know what I thought the rest of that night, probably into the next day? Who in the world does she think she is? Because her kid has more problems than me. All that lady was doing was trying to come alongside and, I see you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. You need to get to Jesus. And she backed my parents. Now, do you think I ran and told my parents? No. But when I got home, my mom said, Jim, so-and-so came and told me and said they told you to come tell me. Really? Mind your own business. But you know what? She was in the business of compassion. She was in the business of trying to get anybody that she could to Jesus Christ. And you know, most people in our church would probably look at that person and say, there wasn't much to her life. But she was, at that moment, she was interested in helping me get to Jesus. And she did it in a kind, compassionate way. And that stuck with me. I don't remember how old I was then, probably 6th grade. All right? The point is, we're all trying to do the same thing. And if you hit a bump in the road, understand, maybe it's because you're going the right direction. And the devil doesn't like that. And the devil wants you to get mad at your authority. And the devil wants you to think that your parents are after you. And your preacher doesn't care for you. You here, every person here, you're in a place that God wants you so that you can get more help getting to Jesus. I'm so glad that I finally got a hold of that. Because it changed my life. You know, I really didn't know everything about the Christian life when I was a young person. And today I still don't. And I've got people here, I've got pastor friends, I've got ministry friends, people I grew up with,
that if they saw a problem, that's what I love about Pastor Whitaker. He stood up in our wedding. If I started going contemporary or started having problems, you know why I asked him to be in my wedding? Because I knew if I ever started having a problem in my marriage where I was an idiot, he would call me on the carpet and he'd say, hey, you need to get things right. I want to surround myself with people like that are willing to tell me the hard things, that are willing to direct me in things that are difficult, that are willing to take the bumpy road for me. Because here's the truth. Do my parents, okay, biblically, yes. But does my parental authority really have to do that for me? Do they have a choice? Yeah. Does my pastoral authority really have to do it for me? No. Our teachers get down. Does the church family really have to care for you?
No.
Don't you think they could do a lot more for themselves in that time that they're trying to help you? Absolutely. But they've come out of their way because they love you, because they have compassion for you. Don't push it away. Don't be like that person that says, well, I'm just not going to help at all. And be that dead weight. Don't push it away. Realize they want you to get to Jesus because the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, has power to forgive sins. Can I urge you tonight, church? I think I covered half a page of these notes here. It all changed, all right? Let's get determined that our number one goal, our number one priority is getting people to Jesus. Our number one tool is compassion, charity, love. Our next tool is everybody working together. And that third one comes easy when the first two are there. Okay? We've talked about this so much. The unity and the spirit of our church is wonderful. Let's make that wonderful move in the direction of let's get other people to Christ. Okay? Let's make sure that our children are got to Christ. Young people, work with us. Maybe it's helping somebody get to Christ. Maybe it's time you step up in that way. Or maybe it's, hey, they're trying to help me. Would you have your heads bowed, your eyes closed? I wanted to be a help to you. I feel like the changing and all of that happened in my heart and mind, I don't know, maybe it didn't even make sense. I hope it did. But that has to be our first priority in church and in our life. Get people to Jesus. And then we've got to do it together with love. Would you let the Lord work on you tonight with that?